I wanted to ask something which I thought was kind of important. In your experience, what can immigrant actors do? Obviously, it really depends on where they're from, because everyone's perceived in a different way and have to approach it. And they can be marketed in a different way. But what would be the most significant thing for them to do in order to work in the British market?
Very good question. I would say if you can, to definitely maintain the connection with your home country, because I know of a few actors who have managed to do both. So, work back home when the right thing comes up and work here as well. And recently someone was sending me a show reel. I introduced them to an agent, and they have this like big TV career happening in Norway, but they've not done much here. I'm always interested in seeing European actors, even if they've not done very much here. If they've done cool stuff wherever else they may be doing, it all adds up. In terms of working here, it does depend what type of work you want to do. I think, if you want to genuinely feel like you are being considered just on the basis of your talent and abilities, etc. I'm not going to lie, and that's coming from a foreigner myself. This place is still very. I often get asked where my accent is from.
Yeah.
So it's still, regardless of how, we're all open and inclusive and everyone welcome and blah, blah, blah. Still, I know for a fact most of our projects that we cast, if there are lines being spoken, very often it would be RP, specific regional accent, and then for particular roles, it will be, we want someone who is maybe a bilingual, I don't know, French speaker, and then their English does have a French accent because that's part of the role, etc.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
those opportunities, there aren't as many of them. So I would say, yeah, work. I mean, it sounds horrible, and I'm not happy about it, and I really genuinely wish that it didn't matter. But it's, your British shows, your British films, they all want you to sound a certain way. So I think
It also makes sense from a storytelling point of view. If that's your primary audience, and they can tell if you sound like you're not from there, that's
yeah,
unless you're Mel Gibson in Braveheart, in which case, the Scots are like, huh?
yeah. So I think that's if you have a good ear, and I think it's a case of just practicing it, and it doesn't, your native accent can be whatever you want it to be, it doesn't matter. But your performing accent for whatever the character is, what the script is and stuff, as you kind of need to cheat it as much as possible and
Yeah.
sound as much as possible as what you need to be sounding. And I sometimes say to actors, we'll on occasion have, they want American actors for this thing, and then everyone would just, even if you're not American, you have to have a really good, strong US accent. And then I say to people, if we're, if you're doing an ident at the end of the tape, just do it all in that accent. Don't give them the opportunity to question whether you this or that. Just kind of do it all in accent, and then you can reveal later on that that's not actually your native accent, whatever that is. Because sometimes I think people like people will get it in their heads. They'll hear what you actually sound like, and they're like, nah, I'm not buying it. It's like, no, you're not buying it because you didn't buy the performance. It's just now because you heard this other thing, so it's just messing with you.
There's a really good example of this. Idris Elba doing String a Bell in The Wire, that's in Baltimore. And I just remember watching an interview, him talking about he did in the in-person meeting, he did it in his Baltimore accent.
Because people can't, your first impression is so important with everything, very often you'll go from watching someone and being like, oh, not really, to then doing a full 180 and thinking, no, actually, yeah, they're really good. more or less your kind of initial response to someone's performance is kind of what you go with, and you kind of have that response straight away, whether it's something is like, yeah, I'm buying this, yes, this performance is believable, I'm watching the character, great, or I'm not. So
So as a one of the first investments an immigrant actor should have, besides acting lessons, is accent lessons, is what you're saying.
I think so. And I think, if you're an actor and you already speak another language, which already is an achievement in itself, and presumably as an actor, even in your native language, you should, in my opinion, have a range of accents you can do.
Yeah.
And basically all accents are different melodies.
Yeah.
And you just need to master those. And I think it's possible. And when people say it offends me to no end, and obviously, as a Serb, I'll notice, but there's like a Serbian character and always a baddie and a thing, and then their name is not a real name. Like, no one would have that name, it just doesn't exist, someone just made it up.
Yeah.
And then the accent is always Russian, and it's like,
Generic
we
Eastern.
don't speak like that. When people speak English and there's a Serbian accent, it's different, they're different sounds, and it's like, you didn't even bother to research this and get someone who can do it.
I mean, yeah, I do stand up and I have a whole thing about once you get past Austria, we all sound like this. Hello, like,
yeah, it's like, but we actually don't, because our languages don't sound,
no.
we are all the same group of languages, like we're all Slav languages, but our languages are so vastly different, and the sounds are different, and the kind of the harshness or the softness of it is completely different. Like,
Yeah.
whenever I say to people I'm from Serbia, they was like, oh yeah, well, I mean, not even going to tell you how many people think that that's like ex-SSSR. I get asked that a lot. So like, oh, you used to be, with Russia? No, could not be further away from there. Like, Russia's miles and miles away. Like, we're in the middle. We're quite Central Europe, actually. We're not even East. But yeah, it's the thing of accents. Like, oh, is that being quite similar to Russian? No, really not. Other than we have Cyrillic as well.
Yeah.
But we also use the Latin alphabet, so we have both, and the sounds are vastly different. So, yeah, sounds, accents.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of moving factors in that, and I love accents because I'm quite geeky and I love things that are like very different and just a tiny shift and it makes all the difference. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with this, but yeah, it's one of those things that people kind of judge you a bit on it, and depending on how authentic it is, they're more willing to forgive you on stage for or believe you on stage as opposed to
Yeah, exactly.
But
And
yeah, I have had the Serbian audition with a Serbian gang affiliated club owner. So yes.
Next time you have your Serbian audition, you let me know, and we can work on your accent.
I literally YouTube, like speaking Serbian, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to do the vowels because the O is slightly different and the things like that.
Well, I'll give you a good example. There's an actor in the last season of Stranger Things who plays Yuri. He's a Serbian actor, Nikola Đuričko, who actually, we went to the same drama studio, but he's much older than me. He's kind of doing a little bit of a kind of, Russian like twang because he's meant to be Russian, but actually, if you look up any of his interviews in English, like that's what a Serbian person speaking English would sound like.
Fair play, fair play.